All right, more homework. Midpoint formula. I think there's a pretty decent chance I will do this differently than he does it in his lessons, and that's a good thing. And if I don't, well, that's okay too. I want to know what the midpoint is. I'm assuming they use the midpoint formula. And just like I said a minute ago on the distance formula, I really prefer to memorize as few formulas as possible. So I don't try to think about a formula, I try to think about an idea and what's going on here. So in this picture we have right here, basically, I think of it again as not really, this is about change. It's actually kind of more about slope than it is about a triangle. But basically, I think about change, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, what is this name? Yeah, that's 12 down. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 over. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, 9 over. Now, midpoint is half. Now, I would really love if they did this one where they said like 2/3 or 3/8 or a thirds would be awesome because 9 and 12 can both be cut into thirds. So I don't think about a formula because if I remember the midpoint formula only works for midpoints. The way I'm going to think about it works no matter what fraction you're cutting this into. So if you're going to cut it into thirds, 2/3, 1/3, you cut the thing into thirds. If you're going to do midpoint, you cut it into halves. If you're going to do 3/8, you cut it into 8 pieces. So since we're going to do half, I'm going to cut it into half. So instead of going 9, I'm going to cut that in half. I'm going to go 4.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Right there. 6 is nice. 12 is nice because it's cut right in half. It's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right there. And so those two things meet at that point right there. So my midpoint is, where is this? This is -1.5 and down 1. So I didn't think about some formula. I tried to think about the concept where I am. So I cut my left-right movement in half, I cut my up-down movement in half, and that found my midpoint. So I think the answer to this question is -1.5, -1. All right, next question. Okay, so on this one, this is a little different. Okay, this one, they don't tell us the endpoints. They tell us one point of the end, and then they tell us where the midpoint is. Now, if you want to think about what that means, is again, and I would think of this again, not so much as a triangle, although I'm drawing it as a triangle. I'm thinking about it about how much change I had. Okay, so this change was 4 down, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and I went 1, 2.5 over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat that change, because if I repeat that change, then I'll end up at the other end because I did half of it. It's the midpoint, it's in the middle. So if I go another 4 down, just like that, and another 2.5 over, that will be my end point. Another 4 down, another 2.5 over. So there's my line segment. That's my middle. That's A. So this must be B. And B would be at the point 8, -4. Okay, did you understand what I did there? All I did was this was the change that got me to the middle. And so now I repeat that change because it's right in the middle. And so if I repeat the change, I get to the other end. I think it's pretty straightforward. Again, I'm assuming he's showing you a formula. The formula is fine. I just don't like to memorize too many formulas. It's just a personal thing with me. I find memorizing too many formulas just mundane and unnecessary. And, I just don't want to try to memorize a bunch of things. I want to try to understand what I'm doing. So here we're again talking about midpoint. It says we want to find the midpoint. So my up down change, there's my up down, and then here's my left right. And again, it is a triangle, but I'm not so much drawing it because it's a triangle. This isn't a change of 1, so midway would be half. This is a change of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I went from -4 to +6. That's a change of 10. So instead of changing 10, I'm going to do half that. I'm going to do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right there. And so my midpoint is right there. So it's 1 over and then a half a step up from 7. So it's the point 1 and 7.5. 1 and 7.5. All right, one more. This is just like the first one the second one where they shared with us the midpoint. Instead of telling us the 2 endpoints, they told us one endpoint and the midpoint and want the other endpoint. And in some ways, this is even easier. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of saying, okay, what was my change? So I went down a half. And then I went over how much? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So now I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to go down a half, and then half, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be my other end, because I went down a half, and over 4.5, because the M is the middle, it's halfway. So you repeat the pattern. I went down half, over 4.5. Since that gets me to the middle, I go down half, over 4.5 again, which makes it certainly seem like I land right at the point 7, 3. Great. I hope my maybe different way of showing it gives you an idea how you might do it in a different way. But be sure and ask questions.